Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje is with us here today on this Friday, and there's a bit of drought relief going on here up in the northern parts of Illinois, where you and I are both located, Greg.
Yeah, despite being only just barely above 40 in some spots over the state, it's the old, what we call the weather business, elevated convection. It's warmer up a few thousand feet and able to get buoyancy going. And yeah, some welcome showers and thunderstorms, kind of the north and westward shift on what has become too much of a good thing in the southern Corn Belt areas. We've gone literally from kind of a marginal drought to a flood south of I-70, especially in southern Indiana, southern Ohio. They've had 6+ inches of rain there this week. So yeah, still trying to balance the books on this dry drought-ridden weather pattern that really covers a wide area of the heartland.
Well, I think I saw down in Florida, they're going through a major drought
Yeah.
condition. I think since 2001 or something. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, and the drought numbers that are pushing. Just to talk about this, there were some folks at the Channel 3 station in Champaign that put a nice graphic together. If you were to try to get soil moisture back to where it should be, is at the peak start of planting, let's say early to mid May, so roughly 8 weeks out, you would have to put down between 12 and 17 inches of rain to get the soil column back to normal. I have a farmer friend outside of Philo, Illinois, in southern Champaign County, dried down before the rains, dried down to 8 feet. And so that would mean about 2 inches of rain each week. And you cannot get anything accomplished like that. But that's the scope that we're looking at over some sections of the central Corn Belt, actually from eastern Illinois into northwest Ohio.
Very good. All right. Well, let's have you give us the update here for this Friday, March 6th.
Okay, and lots to talk about here domestically and on the South America scene as well, with those folks trying to get a little more rain and balance harvest. If harvest is okay, the first crop is, the second crop is struggling with dryness and the drought-related issues there as well. But there is the picture on the national basis this morning. No rain down through Florida. Yeah, they are in a D3 growing on D4 category drought pattern, except for the I-4 corridor in Florida. Everyone is in a pretty much world of hurt when those thunderstorms do get going in the rainy season down through Florida. I think they may be back in the fire scene. I think you had some issues down there last spring as well. There's the low developing into crank up across the Oklahoma Panhandle, responsible for an outbreak of severe weather over northern Texas and eastern Oklahoma yesterday. And there's kind of a heightened risk of severe weather over eastern sections of the plains, the western and southwestern Corn Belt this afternoon and evening. I believe it's an enhanced risk. That's level 3 out of 5. We'll take a look at that in just a second. The upper air perspective, you can see the big elongated trough and a series of systems, what we say, getting kicked out of the trough as it will make its way west to east across the country. And some of the areas that have been on the shorter side of the moisture scheme of late, as where the rain's coming down right now. And there is snow in the forecast too, and a big change for livestock operations in the northern plains. There should be some meaningful and enough moisture to get some good absorption and percolation. That's been the problem in the areas south of I-70 through southern Indiana and Ohio. Too much all at once, and they were probably the best area regarding soil moisture across the Corn Belt this wintertime season. So we try to get fancy here. Got you a Midwest satellite picture. The upper air winds from southwest to northeast, and the clusters of showers and thunderstorms riding their way across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. Another big batch growing out of southeastern Minnesota, northern Iowa, and the severe stuff just beginning to get going from Kansas City, St. Joe southward as well. There, especially western Iowa, Kansas, western Missouri, eastern Oklahoma in the midst of maybe some rough weather this afternoon. There is the series of systems coming out of the west and southwest, the main low coming out of the Four Corners, developing northbound warm front, squeezed by an eastbound cold front, and that's a good way to spin up the atmosphere into strong storms south of that warm front. And north of it, as we had mentioned, what we call elevated convection. It's too cold with 37-degree readings at my part of the world, but it's thunder and lightning outside at the current time. Go above about 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Yeah, it's getting spring-like up there, and clouds take off, and off they go with showers and thunderstorms. So on the Corn Belt headlines, livestock operations are really getting going across North Dakota. 41% of the ewes have been lambed, 18% of the cows calved as of the end of February. And again, there's snow in the forecast, 2 snow systems coming forward, and there is some cold air beginning to establish itself late winter style across the upper Midwest and northern plains. So this yo-yo roller coaster ride of weather continues on there. Meanwhile, rain is boosting topsoil moisture, which is again in deficit mode over over many areas of the Corn Belt, not just that east central Illinois to western Ohio area. But again, you get south of I-70, I believe it would be down there towards the lower Wabash, the White River of Indiana, feeding into the Ohio and the Wabash, where they have had 6+ inches of rain just this week alone. On the plains, that weather system, you can see it coming out of western Kansas, and we've had, before the rains got going, humidity's been low, temperatures have been warm, there's been 30-mile-an-hour winds, and that's the fire problem that plays out. So west of the thunderstorms, which are flaring up through Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas, fire potential beyond the increase, and that'll extend southward into parts of West Texas. Meanwhile, a little more mixed of rain and snow. Winter weather advisory is the first of 2 systems, and that's the trademark of these spring systems. Front side is warm and wet and severe weather sometimes. The backside still has the capability of generating late season winter weather headlines. That's the story going forward to the plains and western Corn Belt locales in the next week to 10 days. Another big drought area of the country is over the southeastern part. Advanced field work, Cotton Belt country of Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas. Look at these numbers in the D3 to D4. That's extreme to exceptional drought. 71% drought through Florida, 37% through Georgia, 35% through Arkansas, Louisiana, in relatively good shape. But again, it's a trademark of La Nina that you just don't get significant organized moisture patterns during the wintertime season over the southern states. Meanwhile, they're still in an anemic setup of snow in the peaks of the Cascades and the Sierra, 30 to 50% of normal. They've had some heat in the desert Southwest and already a little tap into some of the runoff on the snow-covered peaks of the southwestern states and across the northern Great Basin as well. So no big weather headlines coming out of that particular part of the country. There is the heightened fire risk and extreme to critical setup over West Texas, New Mexico, the Oklahoma Panhandle this afternoon and evening time. There's a snapshot of where the flooding is playing out south of Indianapolis from the Wabash south and east, and look like the main storm track is going to track a little more farther north and west in the next 2 weather systems. So that should ease the flooding situation there and get a little more generalized moisture over still some of the dry drought-ridden areas of the Corn Belt and the plains. But the severe weather potential, that would be that enhanced level 3 from about Omaha down to north of the Metroplex, west from there, and then maybe even a slight risk of severe thunderstorms in the parts of northern and western Illinois, eastern Iowa this afternoon and evening time. There should be some record-setting warmth, by the way, as far north as Springfield, Champaign, Terre Haute, Indianapolis, maybe south of Fort Wayne this afternoon as they surge into the middle 70s. That'll be record-setting temperatures for those folks on average there this afternoon. Tomorrow, the severe weather into eastern Ohio and building back across some of the dry drought-ridden areas of Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley. And there's the slew of severe weather reports that came in over south central Kansas, east of the Oklahoma Panhandle, and northwestern Texas, east of Dalhart yesterday afternoon and evening time. The red down there through New Mexico, West Texas are the high wind, not high wind, but red flag warnings, I should say. Earlier on this morning, we've had just these recurrent bouts of fog. Those dew points are surging. You typically feel in the summertime when it's getting humid out, dew points that are about 60 or higher, and they're already there into eastern Illinois, Indiana, and the southern Corn Belt locale. So that should help to generate some degree where we need the rainfall, actually. Harder we're saying that with flooding sound, where we need the rainfall, some decent rainfall totals later on tonight and tomorrow. Winter weather advisories for western Minnesota, the eastern Dakotas, back into the Nebraska Panhandle, and scattered across the central Rockies. As you get this messy looking weather maps and charts set up, the red down through Oklahoma, severe, good coverage showers and thunderstorms now for northern and eastern Illinois. I should say northern Illinois, northern and eastern Iowa. So there's more to come, basically, and they're reforming through Missouri and Iowa and Minnesota as we speak. So there'll be multiple rounds from northern Illinois northward into Wisconsin, some additional snowmelt in the Lakes region. You can see the snow out there. Denver, the Nebraska Panhandle, the Black Hills, and building northward into the Red River Valley of the North as the showers expand across the western Corn Belt into the Lakes region. And severe weather will get going, running from about Kansas City, St. Joe, Wichita, down to Oklahoma City, then back to the east later on this afternoon and evening time. And there should be some pretty good drenching rains making their way through Michigan, lingering for tomorrow morning in eastern Illinois, back into the southern plains states, areas of Texas, and some of that winter wheat area needs more rain, as well as the Delta and sections of the lower Mississippi Valley. And there are those rains moving through tomorrow afternoon and evening time, and they'll kind of stall out, stagnate, if you will, through Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley. So that's a good thing. Meanwhile, more of a westerly, drier flow of milder Pacific air back in. There's no real harsh cold snap for now as the next weather system moves into the Pacific Northwest. The next 48 hours should be able to eke out 3/4 to $1.25. Pretty good covering of Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin into Michigan, and later on tonight and tomorrow and Sunday, perhaps an inch or two worth of rainfall for eastern Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley. Now on to South America. Dry weather has been slowing up on the scene with regard to crop growth and development. We've had some degree of rainfall as well, helping perhaps some of the second crop or later planted varieties. Earlier varieties not going to help. Harvest is getting going down there. We've had more rainfall for areas of central and northwestern Argentina. Large portions, however, of Buenos Aires and Santa Fe and some of those surrounding areas have had little or no rainfall. That's where the worst of the crop conditions are. And so the soil moisture deficits continue on. Temperatures have not been a big story, but we're trying to get some, sense of organized rainfall going, which is kind of the story when you wind out of a La Nina, you begin to move out of that dry drought-ridden setup into something a little more normalized for late summertime down there into early autumn. Government areas through Argentina have talked about some renewed corn and soybean stress in the first round that were later planted. The later planted varieties are more dominant in that worsening crop condition story. And so it goes pretty much the same setup as you would expect here domestically across North America. Brazil, we've had some very heavy rainfall breaking out over a fairly broad area. Paraná on southward, however, it remains drier. Temperatures with the additional cloud cover and the rain have been basically close to normal. No extremes of upper 80s, upper 90s to low 100s. Rio Grande do Sul as of late February, looking like highly variable conditions. Again, first planted beans, not too bad, especially earliest varieties. Second are still dealing with either too much or too little in the rainfall department. Corn harvest about 60% complete into some of the key production areas. Meanwhile, through Paraná, soybean harvest about 37% complete. They say their fields are still in relatively good shape. They've had a little more on the later season variety rains there. 42% of the first crop corn crop has been harvested. 45% of the second crop has been planted. So they continue to move along. So basically speaking, we continue with haves versus have-nots. Argentina, basically the northern sections, some central areas okay. Brazil, northern and central okay. Southern sections, again, a little bit questionable. Drought monitor from yesterday. There it is, over Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, expanding across Nebraska, worsening big time. The lower Mississippi Valley, southeastern states, and there is that Florida snapshot down through Georgia, the Carolinas as well, on the cusp of that extreme to exceptional drought setup, which we see over the northeastern parts in particular of Arkansas. And there it is from east central Illinois through central Indiana and northwest Ohio. Should be able to make some amends there. But again, you're going to need basically double-digit rainfall totals for the next 2 months, and each week about 2 inches of rain if you were to get the water table subsoil moisture back to where it needs to be. So, and with the talk of at least some semblance of an El Nino setups can be a little more muted in summertime, hard to pick them up. What's driving weather, what's not with regard to El Nino or not. Sometimes a more moderate or stronger one means we're dealing with dryness and drought. A weaker one, rains tend to be a little more timelier. So it's just a story that will not be going away anytime soon across the heart of the Corn Belt. There's the snowpack and snow cover from early in January, continuing to make its northward progression, melting, if you will, through the upper lakes region near the Canadian border. Still pretty dominant for areas of the central and southeastern Canadian prairie north of the St. Lawrence River Valley. I believe that would come up to about 17% of the country has some sense of snow on the ground or on the peaks. There's the weather maps and charts of the next week. Weather system spinning out of the southwest will get kind of picked up with the main jet stream pattern beginning to what we say dig a little farther south. It's beginning to slingshot in out of the northern Pacific across the northern interior states. And, each time we get these systems to come through, two things. You've got cold air establishing itself, sneaking a little farther south. You got the usual migration of warmth building northward. And so each of these weather systems, while they should portray more significant moisture, not done with winter. And of course, we're getting into the severe weather season at the current time. There's the next weather system and a big warm up ahead of it again, Monday, Tuesday. But again, more severe weather for the southeastern plains. Another round of rainfall. We'll take it across the Corn Belt locales between Tuesday and Wednesday. And another system doing towards about late Thursday, Friday next week. Each one of these brings the cold air a little farther south and west, tugs the warm air farther east and south. You get the classic jet stream pattern in between, trough in the middle part of the country. And there is your thinking for springtime, wet and active. Not a bad thing, though. But we hopefully are going to foresee a little more pendulum swing to more favorable as we get to that peak early to mid-May and May planning schedule across the Corn Belt. There's the moisture shaping up over the next 7 days, focused over the southeastern plains, lower Mississippi Valley. Nothing to complain about across the Corn Belt locales. And again, there's hardly any frost or freeze on the ground, so most of this rain should absorb and percolate in quite nicely. So that system makes its way from the Great Lakes out of the plains into the Great Lakes region. Showers and thunderstorms, heavy and severe. There's another system on its heels doing across parts of the country for next week. And again, the more significant rainfall totals from eastern Texas into the lower Mississippi Valley. Quickly on the temperatures, record setting 60s, 70s. They'll actually be in the lower 80s at the Ohio Valley this afternoon. By Sunday, more modest cooling, not cold air for now, 50s and 60s across the middle part of the country. The cool air becomes a little more pronounced across the eastern Corn Belt, but still above average temperatures even into late next week. It'll be a slow downward spin on temperatures going forward. Mild overnight lows, most areas staying east of the Missouri, well above freezing, spring-like levels, if you will. No super cold air in sight for now through mid to late next week. We'll return to maybe 20s and 30s at night, not far off seasonal norms over the middle part of the country. Next 6 to 10 days, again, you can see that red dashed area building up through Alaska. We swing the jet southward through the Gulf of Alaska and into the western part of the hemisphere. And each one of these things continues to lobe down colder air each time as usual seasonal heat builds to the north. And so the thinking continues to be, from our mindset, we'll have it on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness, wetter and active, and for some, not a bad thing going forward into the rest of winter and early, probably middle springtime. Temperatures not bad. Moisture continues on, redeveloping in the Pacific Northwest as we get on through the mid-stretch of the month of March and still lining up nicely from the Mississippi Valley on eastward. We will update everything, which really not going to be much of an update. Still thinking it's going to be a busy, active, moisture-laden, which will be welcome for some, maybe not necessarily for others. And I think it's the heartland focused and not the southeastern states. Weather trend as we go through the rest of March, April, and probably the beginning part of May, but we'll detail that when we get together March 18th for our half-hour get-together, the old live stream. Until then, that's a lot to talk about here, even on an update for today.
A lot going on out there, but that's thank you for the update. We appreciate it, and we'll catch up with you next week, Greg.
All right, have a good weekend.